Welcome to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. For the next hour, you'll hear proven methods for how to live the multiple income streams dream. Ryan is passionate about helping others discover their gifts and start their own business. He's published 5 books, and his courses and group coaching programs have changed the lives of thousands of students all over the world. Ryan's books include Private Label, The Easy Way, Finding Your Grace Place, and his latest, Streams of Income. And now, here's your host, Ryan Rieger.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Streams of Income radio show. I'm your host, Ryan Rieger, and today we are chatting with my new friend, Jay Helms. He's a real estate investor and has just an amazing story of how he lost his job and now he just decided, I'm not going back to the W-2 lifestyle at all. Now he and his wife, who met on a reality TV show in 2008, they travel all over the country, live the nomad lifestyle, they homeschool their kids, and they do real estate investing and teach people how to do the exact same thing. He's got a book called Make an Offer, and you can get it for free at makeanofferbook.com. It's makeanofferbook.com. And also check out his program called W-2 Capitalist. They have a community and a mastermind group if you want to go to the next level in your investing. But I took a lot of notes with this one. Jay said something really good that stood out, is that you don't know how creative you can get when until you lose your job. When you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you just have to make things happen. And when you're in a situation like that with your back against the wall, Jay and his wife, they just made it happen. And now they've got an incredible business where they are active and passive investing, but now have grown an amazing community of people that look to them as the experts in their field to train them on how to get to that next level in their investing. So check them out. Really love this interview. Here is my interview with Jay. Jay, welcome to Streams of Income. So good to have you.
Ryan, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So we met, I don't know if we met through a mutual friend, but one of your assistants reached out to me, and I found out that you and I know Mark Willis, and Mark's been on this podcast many times. He was just on 2 weeks ago, in fact. So
okay.
I'd love if we can weave that. I'd be curious to know how you met Mark too. So I don't know if that fits into your story at all, but I want to hear about you and what you're doing and I love what I know about you so far. And so just tell us who you are and how you got to where you are.
Yeah. So probably the most important, there's 2 topics, right? There's the most important thing to know, and then there's the most interesting thing to know.
Yes.
And a lot of people, when you say the most interesting, it kind of perks people's ears up. But the most interesting thing about me is I met my wife when we were contestants on a reality TV show.
Oh my gosh.
Now, we just celebrated our 10th year wedding anniversary. We were together 5 years before that. So it wasn't a very popular show. It was based on fishing. She had never really fished before. I grew up fishing. So like her first fish she reeled in on the show was 120-pound sailfish. This was based in Costa Rica. We spent 6 weeks in Costa Rica fishing on the east and west coast of Costa Rica. So the very first fish she reels in is 120-pound sailfish. So I'm kind of screwed from now on, like taking her bass fishing. Like it just does not
right.
Does not correlate. So, but we met through that show. The show wasn't very popular, but it did air on the Outdoor Channel.
Okay.
We got to know each other very well, and we ended up actually being teammates on the show and roommates on the show. And then when we got back, we decided we couldn't live without one another.
Oh my gosh.
I was living in Birmingham at the time. She she was living in South Carolina, going to school there. She was on a scholarship, and she kind of left all that behind, moved to Birmingham, moved in with me, finished school at UAB, and then the company I was working for, we had an option to move down to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved down to Florida. We always wanted to live where other people vacation.
Yes.
And a few years after that, we got engaged. A year after that, we got married. And then a year plus, we started having kids, and here we are. So that's probably the most interesting thing about me. But probably the most important thing about our story is in May of 2020, I was running a sales team for a company it was a software company, and they provided solutions for remote workers, right?
Yep.
And so you think May 2020, where we were,
Yeah.
COVID was really starting to take off, and you're like, well, this company is sitting in the hot seat because what they provide is remote solutions.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, hey, we're about to just go bonkers, right? It's a publicly traded company and real big outfit. And they took the opportunity to lay people off, and I was one of those folks.
Oh gosh.
And so not only did I get laid off, and what the weird thing is, with running the sales team, you're going to have a sales quota, and we surpassed our sales quota 4 out of the last 6 months. Other teams, I can't say that they did that, but we did.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, although I was their leader, I got laid off. None of the other teams experiencing layoffs, but company wide, there was 10% of the entire company got laid off. Ended up being, close several hundred people that was laid off, and so I was one of them. And at the time, it was a shock. I wasn't expecting it. I was making good money, easy money, and was not expecting it. Our kids at the time were 5, 3, and 1, believe it or not. And so I don't envy the position my boss was put in to make that phone call and say, hey, here's what's going on. We got to let you go and blah, blah, blah. And, there was a month or two severance package, I guess is what it was.
Yeah.
But I sat there for a minute, not expecting it. Cold sweat breaks over. Crap, what are we going to do? The instant fear thing is I'm about to have to go file bankruptcy. And and I go tell my wife what's going on. And she surpasses all that. She goes, great. Now we can go travel like we've been wanting to do. That's her initial thought. And I'm like, I don't think you understand the severity of the situation, and so I couldn't get past the mental roadblock of there went my salary. And her and our wisdom, she's like, well, we have our rental portfolio. What's the big deal? And that, I think that's where the streams of income comes into play, because it got announced that I was let go, and it got announced that, then some other of my team members started calling me and saying, hey, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I was like, I'm not going to go back to the W-2 world. I'm not going to do it. And they're like, how can you do that? And some of them knew that we did some investing or whatnot. And I said, look, we actually, we've been buying rental properties for the last 6 years leading up to that event. And while we didn't use any of that money to live off of, we were just reinvesting it, buying other properties with it. It had built up to quite a big number that I really wasn't paying attention to, because I didn't see any of that money.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. It took me about a year to warm up to the idea of traveling, and because I'm a homebody. But that's what we've done for the last 3 summers. Is we actually converted our house, the one I'm sitting in right now, to a B&B, and we rent it out while we're gone. And for the last three summers, we're here for about 6 months, and then we're gone for about 6 months. So we're in Gulf Breeze, Florida. We're about 15 minutes from the beach. So it does very well in the touristy season. So spring break, summer break does really well. And then for the rest of the time, we're in it, except for, around the holidays, we'll go and travel with family or go travel to see family. And when we do that, we'll open it up. And if it gets booked, great. If not, no harm, no foul, but it typically gets booked. So it does really, really well.
That's awesome.
And we couldn't have done any of that if we had not started building, those multiple streams of income.
Yes.
And now that I don't have a job and I don't have to focus on it, I've been able to focus on creating other businesses and creating other stuff that are just revenue generating. So it's been an incredible, that first few minutes of getting that phone call and hanging out with my boss to immediately going, oh God, I got to go file bankrupt, which we had no debt. We were, at the time, we had adopted the Dave Ramsey principles, and which I know Mark hates. And so Mark and I have a good laugh about that. Like, we kind of poke and prod at Dave on social media to get him to respond to one of us. But we didn't have any debt, and we had to make some minor adjustments in the way we were spending money. And here we are, lifestyle by design, right? So,
Oh my gosh. And I bet your coworkers who got that same phone call that day are not probably had a whole lot longer, that they were a little bit concerned.
I got a phone call from every one of their future bosses asking if I would recommend them to work, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were great employees,
Yeah.
and so I kind of went public about, hey, I got laid off, and when you're part of a public company, they have to show, like, managers at your current level who got laid off and who's staying. And I saw the guys who were staying, and I'm like, these are the same guys who are in sales meetings who are getting beat up constantly that didn't hit their quota.
Yeah.
They're staying, and I'm getting the boot, man. So I've made this kind of like public thing. I'm not going back. I'm not going back to the W-2 world.
Yeah.
The heck with all that. And then one of these HR representatives called that because I'd been put down as a reference, and as we're talking, she goes, "You were laid off with them?" I was like, "Yes, I was." And she goes, "Well, do you want a job?" I was like, "Nah, I'm not. I'm not going to go back to the W-2 world." And as soon as I say that, she goes, "Oh, you're that guy. You're that guy that has kind of went public about all this stuff." And I was like, "Yep." Did I burn some bridges there? She goes, might be hard to get you hired today, but it was I wanted to do that. I wanted to paint myself in a corner, because one of the things I've just realized as an entrepreneur is, when you don't have that security blanket or that safety net, you just don't know how creative you can be at making things happen. And Mark is an example of that. Mark is a guy who, every time I talk to him, I learn something new about how to use money and how to build wealth.
Yes.
I love his office hours that he has every month. And I should be more attentive to him, but I'm not. I'm sorry, Mark. But every time I go, I learn something. And something. It's kind of like, when you grow up in school, they don't teach you hardly any real life skills. You know what I'm saying? And so, but when you become an entrepreneur, you really get pushed to the test, and you learn how creative you can be.
Yes. When you guys, when you got that phone call, was your rental income, where was it? Don't give me numbers, but like, as far as percentage, what you were making at your job that went away, how much was the rental income in comparison to that?
It was about 30%.
Whoa. Yeah. So you had to get real creative.
We got real creative. Yeah. We like, hey, we got to cut out all the Amazon spending.
Yeah.
The whole joke, the UPS driver knocked on our door one day and said, "Hey, are y'all okay?" Because he hadn't delivered a box in a couple of days. I'm like, "Yeah, man, we're fine." It's fine.
Yeah.
But no, we just had to get creative, and talking with guys like Mark and people who are in our community that've been there before. You just learn that debt is actually a good thing. Sorry, Dave Ramsey. Actually, not sorry. He's teaching a lot of people the wrong stuff. Right. But debt can actually help you, and that's and here's the thing: we've never had more debt on us than we do right now, but we've never had a higher net worth than we do right now.
Yeah.
So which is funny, because the W-2 went away. The 6-figure income went away, but I'm a firm believer in, what's the saying? If it gets tracked, it gets improved. So when we first started investing, we do a quarterly track of our net worth growth. And there is a bit of a spike, and it's been on a run ever since I got laid off from the W-2. It's kind of incredible. It's very interesting to look at and see. Like, you would think it was different, like it would be a different thing. So but
well, the Dave Ramsey thing, I feel like there's a lot of people he's changed their life, for sure, no doubt, like you guys included. But I had one person tell me one time, and I thought this was wise, just her take on his teachings, is that he's for the person who has a fixed income. Like, if you're going to be on a W-2 the rest of your life, or you have a fixed income, you're not an entrepreneur, you're not in business, he's amazing. He'll help you get out of debt, be able to earn some extra, or gain some of that get some gap in there so that you then can invest and all that. But like, if you're an entrepreneur like us, or business owners, where we'd rather figure out ways to make money than cut expenses.
Yeah.
He's just not the right guy. It's not the right person we should be talking to. So, yeah.
I would give him a little bit more slack if he treated his user base or his callers or his listeners with a little bit more respect.
Mm.
Like when they call in and he goes, he calls them idiots or buffoons or what are you, stupid? Why would you do that? I'm like, why do these people keep calling in?
Right.
These paid actors that keep
Ouch.
calling in and getting verbally abused.
Right.
Like, what's the problem here? Like,
Right.
I don't know. There's this. If he didn't do that kind of antics, I think I would give him a little bit more slack. Because you're right. I think he does help certain people out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not them. I'm not one of them. And I don't know. I just is that what's the golden rule? Treat people like you want to be treated.
Right.
Is that what he's doing? I don't think so.
Doesn't sound like it, does it? Oh my gosh. Talking about real estate, when you got that phone call, how many units did you have then?
I don't remember. We've done quite a few transactions where it's just my wife and I,
Mm-hmm.
where we own and we're down to 6 doors there. I used to, hear people on the podcast or all different podcasts and say, "Oh, we got 10,000 doors, or we got $1 million doors, or whatever the big number is." And that inspired me for a while until I realized they're not really giving you the right number. Mm-hmm. Like when we became limited partners in some deals, and where we would invest 25, 50,000 into deals that would, where the general partners had to raise 25 million, Mm-hmm. We're like less than 1%. And I'm out here taunting, hey, I've got, 500 doors in my portfolio. It's not really, that's not really the thing. So I kind of lost count on where we were on that, because we were doing some limited partner stuff. And I don't really remember what that number was. But I find the door question funny now. I also like when folks brag about how much assets under management they have. Mm-hmm. It's not a number that impresses me at all. It normally just scares me away, because what they should be bragging about is the returns they're providing their investors. Because I don't care about how many. Usually, when people have that many assets under management, they're typically they're not too terribly focused on the returns that I should be getting. Yeah, and I'm gonna sound selfish there, but it is my money that they're using. Sure. So I kind of stay away from those two numbers. But for sure, our portfolio right now, we have 6 units between my wife and I. We've got we're a joint venture in a 16-unit apartment complex, mm-hmm. where we have, I think it's 30% of the ownership there. And then we're still limited partners in several deals that have hundreds of units in them. And then we've transitioned to doing hard money and private money loans. Nice. As we do that. And some of that is through our Bank on Yourself policy, through Mark. So I
want to get to that in a second. I want to hear about how that all works. I know Mark talks about using, and I can imagine how that might work. You're pulling a loan out of your policy and putting it to work over here, and you've got double dip. You got your money coming in from the policy at the same time, and you're earning dividends on the policy, plus you're earning interest, earning a return on the money that you invested. That's wow. Awesome. Tell me about limited partnerships. I think I know what it is. I think it's actually something I'm doing right now with a friend who put a fund together. It's invested in multiple different properties, like mostly apartment buildings. Some are being developed, and then they're exiting, and we're getting the cash at the end. But what does limited partnership look like? Because we've had a lot of real estate, and I apologize because a guy named Stephen Hibbert, who's usually on these calls with me, he's from Florida and Tampa in the St. Petersburg area. He's a real estate guy. He would have a ton of deep questions to ask you. So my questions are going to be a bit more higher level, surface level stuff. I know something about real estate. I've had a lot of property in Indiana before '08. When I moved here in '08, I kind of had to let those go. Probably could have done some different things, but that was a long time ago. So I have a limited knowledge compared to Steven about real estate. So my questions might be
Okay.
more like surface level things.
Yeah. Well, so in a multifamily syndication, so think of apartment buildings. It could be a fund that's put together to go and buy multiple apartment buildings or do some development, whatnot. You have two types of partners generally. You have general partners, and those are the guys who put the deal together. They're going to actively go out and not only raise money, but they're going to manage the property as it's being held. And that includes, putting property managers in place, putting systems in place, and making sure that the limited partners get paid. They get paid their preferred return and whatnot. And then the limited partners are the money people, right? They basically say, hey, like Ryan, if you were a general partner in a deal and you and I knew each other well enough and I wanted to invest in your deal, I believed in you and I believed in the deal. I said, Ryan, here's my money. Here's 100,000, whatever. And I give it to you. I'm a limited partner. I have voting rights as it comes to the general partnership, who's operating in the general partnership, but I may not have any voting rights on day-to-day operations, right? And so basically I'm investing in the deal, but I don't have a whole lot of say so. And so and for that I will get a preferred return. And basically think of it like as a solid partner, right? But if things go sour enough, as long as the operating agreement is structured in the way I would prefer it to say, would basically say limited partners have the right to remove the general partners if the general partners are not performing, which basically means the asset's not performing. Right. But your limited partners are your money guys.
Okay. And then those can be in any type of situation. Like the one I'm in is it's not like a monthly cash flow from the rent. It was like we were helping getting the property built, I believe. And he gives us reports on this property where there's one in Columbus, Ohio. It's like it's now 50% rented, and there's pictures in there. And then at some point they'll probably sell off their part of it, their share of it, and then we'll get paid back.
Okay, but yeah, so the distribution, what you're talking about there is distributions, right? And so every syndication, whether it's a general partner or a limited partner, the distributions can be different. They're almost like snowflakes on how they're going to get paid out. I mean, they're all, there's some similarities to it. Is it a monthly distribution? Is it a quarterly distribution? And some of them, like you said, they may not have any distributions at all until the sale of the property, and then they're going to make up for things they should have been paying out for up until that point.
Interesting. Very cool. I know you want to talk to busy parents. So, like, who's that person? What are they struggling with, and how do you help them? And like, what's that person that's that's the best fit for your program? And I want to also unpack what you guys do and how you help people.
Yeah. So, I think back when we first started investing, we had one kid. My son asked me the other day, he's 8 or he just turned 9. He asked me, he goes, Dad, when did you decide you wanted to be a real estate investor? And I was like, well, actually, we had found out that we were pregnant with you we had found out about 4 weeks into that. And I was looking, hey, the company I was working at the time, I thought I was going to get laid off there too, but well, it was an acquisition, and the acquisition was not going well at all, and the acquirers were looking at the people they acquired and said it's y'all's fault, but it's not. Y'all came and made some changes, but so I had the fear of, hey, kid's about to come. My wife was stay at home. Or was planning to be stay at home. And I'm thinking, man, what have I got to do? I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck. What I got to do? And so he just kind of led down that path of rich dad, poor dad, and then real estate. And so I think back to those times, and we got our first property. We closed on it when he was 3 weeks old. It was his
Okay.
very first closing, right?
Yep.
And so I think back to that time, and now I look at, all right, we've now got a couple of kids. We've got a pretty, fairly good sized portfolio.
Mhm.
I want to help other people who don't
Yeah.
want to help. And I started going through and I started thinking about folks we've helped before, people who are part of the mastermind. And I was like, okay, most everybody in the mastermind is busy parents.
Mhm.
And they're focused on, they had this one or two deals, they were done. But after they did that, they're like, oh, I got bit by the real estate bug, but I don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
I've closed a couple of deals. I want to go bigger. I don't necessarily know how. I want to have a partner. I want to do some partnerships. I don't necessarily know how. I need extra funds. I don't necessarily know where to get them, because when I talk to my close friends and family,
Mhm.
they all think we're crazy.
Right.
They're not interested in real estate investing. And so that's kind of who, I want to talk to.
Mm.
And one of the things that I love doing that, because I'll do a lot of one-on-one calls with folks
Okay.
who are struggling with deal flow or raising money and whatnot. I said, all right, let's do this exercise. And I stole this from Hal Elrod. Okay. And I said, get out your phone, just go grab your phone. And I said, let's go to your most recent phone calls, right? Received or made, I don't care. Let's just look at your top 20 most recent phone calls.
Mhm.
And I said, let's look at that. Let's get a sheet of paper. And on the top, you're going to make two columns. On the left-hand side is going to be growth friends. On the right-hand side, we're going to call it maintenance relationships. Okay.
Yep.
Probably see where I'm going with this. But on the growth friends column, we're going to go down through who you called or who you talked to. And if you talked about real estate investing, building a better financial future for your family, growing your wealth on that phone call, you're going to put that person in growth friends.
Yep.
Everybody else, I don't care if it's your mom, your sister, I don't care who it is. If you didn't talk about anything dealing with real estate investing, financial freedom, financial wealth,
Mhm.
better, financial stability for your family, they're going to go into the maintenance relationships column.
Mm.
Okay. So let's do that. Let's just take 5 minutes and do that.
Yeah.
And they'll sit there and sketch out. And I said, okay, I'm going to bet you $1 that you're heavy on the maintenance relationships. And they'll show me their piece of paper.
Yeah.
And they may have one or two people on the growth friends. And I was like, do you see the problem? Most people see the problem.
Yeah.
And I was like, so there's a way you can do this. You can start changing who you're talking to, right? And it's going to dramatically change where you are in a year.
Mhm.
And for those people who they just struggle, like, well, I don't know who to talk to. I'm like, well, you know what? I got a community of people just like you. They're busy parents. They got bit by the real estate investing bug. They want to double their portfolio. They have,
Yeah.
these huge financial goals, and it costs $50 a month to join. You want to come be a part of it? Just see what it is. Yeah, maybe.
What?
Maybe. Why the maybe? Like you just say, like, and so a lot of times they'll circle back, and
Yeah.
they'll figure it out. But
Yeah.
and it's really, the community really is for people who are, they've tapped out all the podcasts, they've tapped out all the Bigger Pockets forums and Facebook groups and stuff like that, and they just want a little more.
Yeah.
And have the flexibility of not having to go somewhere, right? Because we're completely virtual.
Yeah. That's awesome. Wow. So it's a family. They've already got one or two deals. Are they mostly single family homes that they come in with?
So there seems to be a natural progression, right? They start with a single family home, and they do a couple of those, and they're like, all right, now I want to do a small multifamily, so 2 to 4 units. And after they do a couple of those, they're like, all right, now I want to go bigger. I want to go do an apartment syndication, and that's been the natural progression. And then once they do those a couple of times, then they're like, all right, I want to get completely passive. Like I want to just be a limited partner in a deal, or I want to be a hard money lender.
Yeah.
How do I do that? Right.
Yeah.
And so it's you get from very active to very passive.
Sure.
Usually within a 3 to 5 year window.
Yeah.
That's kind of what that looks like.
Is there a certain amount that like, I think I can just tell you the number on the deal that I'm a part of with my buddy who I guess he would be the general partner, or he's the one managing the fund that.
Yeah.
And then he's the one identifying properties to invest in. And I think we're already invested in all the ones we're going to invest in. I think my investment was like 20 grand or something to be a part of that. Yeah. And I've already gotten back, I think, all of that, and we're expecting more. I mean, quite frankly, I don't even know how much more to expect. He could probably tell you. But that's
you're the ideal partner, by the way.
I'm so silent that I don't even know what's going on. I know I've gotten my money back, and I know I'm going to get a nice return from it. So, like,
you're
do you feel like
partner?
That's good to know. Like, if I feel like if I joined your group, I don't really want a single family home. So my story, real fast. In Indiana, we did real estate before I moved here. We were in a college town, and so we did start with a single family home. We bought several more, me and my brother and a buddy, and then actually ended up buying a house that I ended up moving into that had 2 extra units. So me and my brothers, we didn't have to pay any rent. We didn't have to pay them. Our mortgage was covered by the 2 other units. And then we ended up buying an apartment building. And then when I moved here to Indiana, it was like up to completely to my brother and my friend. My friend backed out because he didn't want to do it anymore. And then it was just too hard on my brother to try to do all of it himself. And I was remote. So essentially we had to sell it all off. Plus the 2008 crash didn't help.
Yeah.
So I think if I ended up joining your group though, it'd be something for me, it would be like, I just want to jump straight to the LP level. I guess the question is there a certain amount of money? Like I only needed $20,000 to get into that one.
Gotcha.
Is there a certain level for people, like the people listening to this? I know there's some that have real estate, and there's some that also have money that are like, I know about real estate enough that I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to be fixing toilets at 3 a.m. Can I just come into your group, Jay, and then you show me how to be an LP, and here's my 10 grand, or is there a certain level of income certain investment to get into those deals?
That's a great question. So most of who comes into the group, they're actively looking for deals, or actively looking for themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so what you're describing is somebody who wants to be more passive.
Yep.
And so we don't have a lot. Matter of fact, we turn a lot of quote unquote passive investors away. Mm-hmm. Maybe to our detriment, but it does, you come into the group, you're an active investor, you're going to be surrounded by active investors, right?
Yeah.
But that natural progression that happens, eventually people get to that point where they just want to be a hard money lender or private money lender or whatnot, mm-hmm. or they may be, a key sponsor on the deal. So say, Ryan, you've never bought like a 20 unit apartment complex, and you want to go buy one, you want to get, Fannie or Freddie financing for it. Well, there's some stipulations, like you've got to have somebody who's done a Fannie and Freddie loan before and kind of got that card punched. And so there could be, opportunity to work with one of those guys. And so the folks who have been in the group for a while, mm-hmm. They've graduated on to where they're now like key sponsors of deals, and they're being somewhat passive, and whatnot. So we don't have a lot of people who come in the group to instantly go passive. Okay. Because one of the things that's different from our group than the other ones is that we don't require, like if you run into a deal, we don't require that you bring it to the group first to get funding. Like there's a lot of groups out there like that. Wow. And if you just search apartment foreclosures, uh-huh. there's a consistent group members who are part of some of the more recent, like larger foreclosures. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to stop right there. But we don't require that. So, but what does happen kind of organically is people are in the community, they're on the calls, and they get to know one another. Some of these folks are like a lot of the ladies. They even said, "Hey, we want to have our own thing," So now they've got ladies' night. They've actually coordinated one trip to Florida where all the ladies went down and just hung out for the weekend.
That's awesome.
But they get to know one another, and then as deals come up, like Fridays we have underwriting, an underwriting call where anybody with a deal wants to bring it to practice their pitch or get some feedback on what they're looking at. We will do that. Awesome. So, but it's not necessarily a requirement to invest in a deal, but typically those relationships are built and it just happens organically.
Yeah.
So I don't think I answered your question specifically, but there's not an amount of money
Okay.
that is required to come in, because we don't really that's not really our model.
Sure. But is there two different things? I was looking at your website. Do you have a base community that's $50 a month, but then you also have a higher level mastermind?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The higher level mastermind comes with a little bit more engagement, where
Sure.
the pro community, we have a one call a week. We're a little early on the advertising of that. We're still kind of tweaking what that's going to be, and it's going to launch in January. It's going to relaunch in January, I should say. It was
Cool.
a failed launch a couple of years ago, but it's going to relaunch in January. But the mastermind is a higher ticket item, and we have over 20 virtual calls every month,
Nice.
and it's very niche specific for multifamily guys or fix and flip. Or just single family buy and hold. We have very, very specific, and the folks who lead those calls, that is their niche, right? So the
Awesome.
multifamily guy, that's all he does is multifamily.
Yeah. That's awesome. Oh, what other advice would you give somebody who's like, let's say the people who are not quite ready for your group, that don't have anything under their belt yet? They're wanting to do this. What resources or advice would you give them about just getting that first deal done and what to look for or anything? I know you could probably talk for hours on that one question, but
yeah, and there's so much stuff out there for people who are wanting to get the first deal, and there is something to be said about that. I'll say our group is not for them, because we want everybody to have at least one deal done before they come in.
Mm-hmm.
What I will offer is a copy of my book. So make an offer. It's I was talking to somebody earlier today. They're struggling with analysis paralysis, and I was like, well, I don't know. We kind of walked through that, but I have gotten to the point where now I just offer that book up for free. Anybody who wants a copy, you can be a newbie, or aspiring investor or an experienced investor. Everybody deals with analysis paralysis, and so I'll give you the link at the end.
Yeah.
I don't remember it off the top of my head.
No problem.
No.
I'll put it in the show notes for everybody.
Okay. I think it's makeanofferbook.com, and you can go there and request a free copy. I think that's what it is. I could have easily just put that in there while we were talking.
I'll look at it while you're talking right now.
Please be right. Please be right.
Yeah, it looks like that says SEW2 Capitalist. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. That's it.
So makeanofferbook.com, guys. Awesome. Do you feel like most people get started at the single family home level because that's like one of the easiest, lowest hanging fruit opportunities?
That's the way we started.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I wish I could remember and give credit to whoever initially said this, but if you think about, grades in school, you have your freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, and then you have your graduate, right? So if you look at real estate investing niches, typically your freshmen are going to be your wholesalers. They don't have any money, right? But they're hustlers, and they're going to. We tried to start out as wholesalers and quickly realized that it's not part of my wife or my personality, and we just kind of skipped past it. We figured out how to go get a HELOC, and that's how we basically bought our first property.
Yeah.
And so I look at, or the saying is, wholesalers are freshmen, fix and flippers are sophomores.
Okay.
Right. Juniors are single family folks, and then seniors are apartment investors.
Okay.
Right. And then your graduate students are the guys who develop. Because there's a lot more risk. There's a lot more things involved.
Sure.
Because you're building a property that's not going to cash flow until it's done and it's leased up, right?
Yeah.
And so there's, in a broad sense, a lot of folks get started with wholesaling, or at least the idea of wholesaling. But then there's a natural progression to go to fix and flipping. Some people skip fix and flipping. We have never, still to this day, have not fixed and flipped a house. We've done a couple of live-in flips. Gets tremendously more difficult when you have kids.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But we did the single family, and then small multifamily, and then apartments, and then moved on after that to lending. I didn't put lending in there. Lending should be in there somewhere.
That be graduate or senior level?
That might be close to the end of the senior year. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess that's something that you could do right away. If you have some money to invest and you want it to be completely passive, you could just jump straight to that.
You can. You just need to be cautious, like who you're working with, like
Sure.
the guy you're talking about. Sounds like you've known him for a while. You know him, and that's why I said earlier in the example, so Ryan, if I know you, I trust you, and I trust the deal.
Yeah.
Typically, it's you want to trust the person more than the actual deal, right? And because
Good.
if I trust you enough, you and I know each other well enough, you know my investment criteria, you know what I'm willing to put up with. You're not going to bring me some crappy deal anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or one that I'm not going to be happy to invest in.
Yeah.
So that's why I really feel like you got to know the person. And, anybody can Google and see there's some class action lawsuits right now out there with folks who, I look at it and I think, well, thanks, buddy. Now you're giving the rest of us a bad rap. But then I also look at it like, well, for those people who invested with him, how well did they know him? How well did they do their due diligence? How well were they, checking up? Hey, how's the investment going? I hadn't seen a distribution lately, or whatever the case is. And so I don't know. You just got to be careful on what you're doing. And I think you did it right, Ryan. One of the things I've done when I've invested with other people, even though I know them well enough, right? I will start out with most investment opportunities come with a minimum investment, and I'll invest the minimum. Let's see how you do on this one.
Sure.
All right, give me that money. You got me the returns that we're expecting. There comes the next deal. Okay, I'm going to give a little bit more, and then so along with that relationship, the trust that's built with that relationship comes more funds.
That's good. That makes sense. All right. What advice would you give folks that are just starting out, or even that they've got a couple of deals under their belt? Anything, some things you've learned in business that's helped you? Any motivational words?
Yeah, no, the biggest thing, and I've always been until recently, it's always been, hey, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it by myself. When I was talking earlier about, we got laid off from my W-2, but then we saw our net worth just, skyrocket or kind of go on a inverted hockey stick, or not inverted. Inverted would go down. Inverted hockey stick that makes it go up. Right.
Yeah, right.
It was basically, I look at that and I was like, okay, what changed? Other than what was I doing? And quite frankly, it's who I'm talking to.
That's good.
You and I were joking, you wanted to push this meeting back 15 minutes and we got on here like, I'm glad you did because it gave me time to eat lunch,
Yeah.
Because since I got on the phone at 8:00 this morning, I've had about a 5-minute break between now and then. Well, that's not true. I had about 15 minutes to make something to eat and eat it. And other than that, I had about 5 minutes all morning long. The rest of the time was talking to other investors. And I've drifted away from doing that because we got busy with some other stuff. We got busy with traveling. We got busy trying to figure out the whole nomadic lifestyle. But if I go back to right after I got laid off, what changed was I had 8 hours of the day back. Right, I was no longer going to work. And so what I was doing is I started calling folks and just having conversations with them. Hey, what's going on? What's happening in your world? And it really, to give however I credit is that growth friends.
Yes.
If you're not, if you go through that exercise and you see that you're heavy on maintenance relationships, in order to grow, in order to get started, or even hit those financial goals, you got to start changing the conversations you're having, and probably changing who you're having them with. And that's the key.
That's good. Yeah, if I would do an audit of mine, like I hardly am ever on my phone. I hardly ever talk on the phone, but I do lots of Zoom calls, and it's 95% growth friends and people that are in good conversations. I don't know. I don't have maintenance Zoom calls usually.
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy. Maybe that's one way to go about it. Don't do any more phone calls. Do Zoom
Right.
calls only.
Because
Thing
the
too,
maintenance friends aren't on Zoom. They're not doing Zoom
there you
calls.
go. The other thing too is if you don't do a lot of phone calls, go to your text messages.
That's true.
And
Yep.
see what kind of stuff you're texting out, and it's going to look a lot different. I'm just going to look at mine. Top ones. Okay, so remember the mastermind.
Uh-huh.
General contractor is working on some stuff. Investor, my son. Realtor, mom and brother on a group chat. Investor, lifelong friend.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
that's, I don't
That
know how
sounds like
many
a
that
good
was,
ratio to me.
but so it'll dramatically, if you want to change where you are a year from now, you got to start, having different conversations.
That's
And
right.
it's probably going to lead to different people.
That's
And
right.
if you struggle with those different people, there are loads of communities out there that are going to help you do that. I'm biased to one of them.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
But,
Yours. Yeah.
and one thing I love about our community is when we get on these calls, most of us are parents, and we all at times just need to vent about our kids,
Mhm.
and if our spouses are not within earshot, because man, life just gets hard. It just does. And kids, while they're lovely and amazing, and you can't wait until they have their own kids one day, and so you can spoil the heck out of them.
Right.
They are very trying.
Yeah, I understand.
At times.
Yeah, I have a 6-year-old, so I get it. But that's
Boy or
awesome.
girl?
Yeah, he's a boy. His name's Callan.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and this episode will probably air this Friday, and he actually does the intro to my podcast. And so, if you listen to, you probably don't go back and listen to podcasts you're on because you know what you said anyway. But like he does the intro and he says, "Welcome to Streams of Income. Today we played Legos. My daddy helps other daddies stay home and play Legos. And here's my daddy,
awesome.
Ryan Reed." Now he did it a couple years ago, and that's when it's harder to understand him. So we should probably redo that one. But
I like that though. I was thinking about revamp recording the new season of the WG Capitalist podcast, and I might need to get my son involved to do an
Absolutely.
intro. That's because I've been struggling with that.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that's how Mark and I met. He had hired somebody to reach out to podcast hosts and see if they could come on, and he came on.
Oh, nice.
And he was on there, and he was talking about the Bank on Yourself piece.
Okay.
And I had heard about whole life insurance before, and had a few guys on the podcast before. Yep. But Mark is the one guy that made the light bulb go off, and I committed on air, quote unquote, that I was going to do something with him, and that was almost 4 years ago, and it has dramatically changed the trajectory of the legacy that I'll be able to live. Yeah, or leave.
Yes, I love it. My wife and I have several policies now. It's all because of Mark.
Yeah.
Well, Jay, thank you so much, man. When you relaunch your group, you said January is when your community is going to relaunch ish.
Yes.
You're welcome back if there's any way. I mean, I know there's all kinds of stuff that we could talk about. Your assistant who gave me like a list of topics to talk about, we didn't even hit half of them. So you're more than welcome to come back, and we can promote your community when it relaunches.
Love it.
You just let me know anytime. So appreciate you being on with me.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
You've been listening to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. From right here in the Dallas Metroplex, Ryan teaches several entrepreneurial courses and group coaching programs to students all over the world. Be sure to listen next week at the same time for Streams of Income with Ryan Rieger.